Hi everyone, Mariah here with Thread and Maple, and in this tutorial I am going to show you how to do the German twisted cast on. This cast on is sometimes called the twisted German cast on or even the old Norwegian cast on, and it's a really nice alternative to the long tail cast on. It creates a really nice and stretchy cast on edge that is great for the cuffs of your socks, sleeves, or even hats. So you're going to start out in your slingshot position, and it's going to look very similar to the long tail cast on in the beginning. You're going to take your right needle and bring that needle down to the base of your thumb. You're going to slide that needle underneath the two strands that are around your thumb. You're going to lift that needle up and to the tip of your thumb. Now you're going to slide that needle down your thumb all the way down so you go through those two strands around your thumb. Then you're going to bring the needle away from your palm towards you, up over this big circle so you can go over and grab that yarn around your index finger. And then there's just this little triangle where we have that loop twisted on our thumb. We're going to pull this strand of yarn through that triangle. It's going to look a little like this coming through here. And then we have our stitch that we've casted on that we want. So we no longer need that thumb yarn. We can let that go and reposition. Again, a little bit slower. We're going to bring the needle tip all the way down to our base of our thumb so you can touch the base of that thumb. And you're going to slide, keeping that needle in touch with your hand. You're just going to slide it along your hand, and it's going to go underneath these two strands of yarn that are around your thumb. Now that needle tip is going to come off of your hand up and go up to the tip of your thumb. And then keep that needle tip in contact with your thumb, and you're going to slide that needle tip down your thumb, and it's going to go between those two strands that are around your thumb. Now you can bring the thumb off of your palm by bringing it towards you, up, over, all the way over so we can grab that yarn that's around the index finger. And again, there's just this little triangle down here. That's what we're going to pull this strand of yarn through. So we're going to bring it through, hopefully that little opening there. We have our new strand. Now we can let go with our thumb and reposition. So a little bit faster. We're going to go down, underneath the strands, up, thumb tip, down our thumb tip, come all the way around, grab that index finger, come through the triangle here and reposition. So again, it's almost like I call it a glorified long tail cast on, and that little bit of twist that we're creating here at that thumb strand is what gives it a little bit more stretchiness. Now, if you're having trouble with this part right here, where you bring that needle through that triangle, there is another way to do this, and it's kind of my preferred way. So let me show you what that looks like. The setup is the same. You're in your slingshot position. You're going to bring that needle down to the base of the thumb, underneath those two strands. Bring the needle up to the tip of your thumb. Same thing, we're going down that thumb. Bring that needle tip towards you, up, over, and you're going to grab that yarn, and this is where it's different. So if you're like me and you had a really hard time seeing that triangle and seeing what to do there, you can actually untwist this yarn. And you do that by just bringing the tip of your thumb to the base of your index finger, kind of like you're pointing or pointing a gun. That opens up this strand around your thumb. So this is the twisted version, and here we untwist it. This is what it looks like twisted, and then we untwist it. So now with it untwisted, we can just go through that loop, bring our casted on stitch through, and now we can let go of the thumb. Let's see how that looks a little bit faster. Again, everything the same, all the way down, come around, but now we untwist the yarn and we can come through. And that just makes it a little bit easier to see if you can't see that triangle. And again, this is my preferred method. So let's just go into this a little bit more detail if you need a little bit more help with this. This is very similar to the long tail cast on. And with the long tail cast on, you need, as it says, a long tail. So you need to make sure that your tail is long enough for the number of stitches that you need to cast on. And one trick for doing that is to take the yarn, you're going to wrap it around the needle 10 times. And the idea here is that this length of yarn is what 10 stitches will need. So then you can use this length to measure out how much you need based on the number of your stitches that you need. So here we can measure out that's 20, this is 30, this is 40, and you could just keep going. Okay, so once you measure out that chunk of yarn that you need for your tail, this is where you're going to attach the yarn to your needle. And just like the long tail, to get in that slingshot position, you have these two strands of yarn coming from your needle now. One is the tail end, and the other is the end attached to your working yarn. So you're going to set up where you have those strands of yarn draped around your fingers. The tail end is going to go over your thumb, and I like to think of tail begins with the letter T, and so does thumb, so that's how I remember that. And then the working yarn is going to be over your index finger. So I think of these two strands of yarn hanging down here, they kind of look like tent flaps to me. So I want to open up those tent flaps. So I'm going to take my index and my thumb. I'm going to go into those, in between those two strands, and I'm going to open them up to hold the tent flaps open. And then my last three fingers are going to grab the strands at the base and to create this opening, this big circle. And then the last piece to kind of make it look like that slingshot is I like to, again, put my index here so this doesn't fall off, but you're kind of going to pull down a little bit. You're going to have this on a little bit of tension, and now it looks like you have a slingshot. And if you notice, what you've created is a loop around your thumb. And knitting really is just pulling loops through loops. So we've got a loop around our thumb. We're going to grab another loop, and that's our index finger yarn, and pull that through this loop around our thumb. Okay? So once again, for the German twisted, what makes it a little different is we're twisting around this loop around our thumb. So one last time, bringing that needle tip down to the base of your thumb, go under both strands, and then bring your needle up to the tip of your thumb. And this is creating that nice twist. Slide that needle tip down your thumb, going between those two strands. Bring the needle tip towards you, up, over, and you're going to grab that yarn around your index. And if you look at what's happening, you're actually wrapping that yarn counterclockwise around the needle. So it may look like your needle is going and grabbing the yarn, or if it helps, that yarn is being wrapped around that needle counterclockwise. And that's what we do when we knit. We wrap it around counterclockwise. So now that we have the strand of yarn that we want to pull through this loop, we're going to choose either we see that triangle and we're going to pull the loop through there, or we're going to untwist and pull the loop through there. And this creates your German twisted cast on.